something like Mitch.
Cool.
So forth.
Yeah, you have the same thoughts.
And
All right. Hello, everybody. They let me host this round. I've pretty much spent all my jokes, so I'm just going to host and get everybody hyped. Are we ready for the late night show? I guess we're going to call it the late night show.
yeah.
Yes, woo. People outside, if you can hear us outside, we're starting the late night show. They can't hear us outside. Oh well. Who's first? Is anybody's first time here tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. We've got some good performers here tonight. You missed the really shitty half. By shitty, I don't mean the jokes were bad. I mean just there was a lot of shit jokes. There was just a big string of comedians telling shit jokes in a row. It was pretty good though. All right, so if we are ready for our second round. Oh wait, Cole is.
I think there's a few more coming.
All right. All right, we'll hold up the show for the guys who are getting hot outside. That's what we're doing. No, it's fine. It's a worthy cause. It's gonna make everything more enjoyable.
Exactly.
That's right. All right. Now that everybody's back, we're ready to bring up our first comedian for this round. Let's give it up for Carl. Carl, come on down.
I didn't know I was coming up. Alright. So, I'll just involve you in what was going on the other side. How long does everybody think they'd live in an apocalypse? Real talk. Okay, let me lay out some ground rules really quickly. Zombies do not decay, but they do freeze in the wintertime, okay? They don't fall apart, but they... Never mind, let's do some jokes, alright? Alright, sorry. I was not ready to go on stage a second time. So, alright. I'm going to tell a story really quickly. There once was a very, very wealthy man who was buying a house, right? And he had his childhood friend with him, who was also his real estate agent. And so the wealthy man, he's a scumbag, he's a wealthy man. You guys ever see those Mr. Crawl ads on your phone? Or Mr. Sprawl, is that what it is? The Hamilton guy? I don't know if that's a really niche thing, but if you get the Green Party on your feed, it's just some cartoon guy that they have no goal. I don't know what it is. But anyways, this guy, he's trying to bargain with his friend and get really cheap deals. And his friend is yo, I've known you a long time, man. Cut the shit. You could afford the Taj Mahal. And so the guy goes, all right, maybe you're right. I've been cheap my whole life. I'll take it. And his friend's what? What are you talking about? He's the Taj Mahal. I'll take it. And he's oh, no, sir. I was just making a joke. And he goes, son, I'm hard of hearing. I'd love to hear a joke if that's okay. If that's what you're offering. And he's oh, sir, sorry, the Taj Mahal, it's in India. And the wealthy man goes, John, the guy's name is John. John, I've known you a long time. You're a very dear friend to me. You're a great man. But I've heard better jokes. Okay, I'm gonna get off the stage. Who's up next?
Thank you, Cole. Thank you, Cole. I messed it up. I'm sorry. I messed up the order. I had one job. They let me host, and I screwed up the order. That's why you didn't know you were up next, Cole. It was all my fault. Our next comedian is Corey Stevens. Corey Stevens. Come on up. You're the next contestant.
What's going on? How's everybody? That sounds like you're doing pretty shitty. How's everybody? Alright, well I'm gonna bum you the fuck out. Alright, I'll tell you a quick joke. So I went, because I am gonna bum you out, so I'll tell you a joke first. So I went over to my friend's house, right? They just had some kids. There's, I think one's 3, the other one's 2, right? So to experience the magic of parenthood, I went every time I go over there. And anyway, so I go over and they live across the street from the school. And I show up, there's a fence that's built all the way around the schoolyard. And I go inside, I'm like, Sarah, what's up with the fence? She said, you wouldn't believe it. There was a van trying to lure kids into the van. I said, that's terrible. She said, would you believe it, in the middle of the day? And I'm like, it wouldn't have much luck in the middle of the night. School be fucking closed, idiot. All right. I do want to reflect on something Dex said earlier, because I used to do stand-up a lot of the time, like 10 years ago. It's a great city for it. Keep at it. Everyone's doing fantastic. But I was my first time hosting a show, and it was in Burlington. I was super excited about it. This guy went out, and it was clearly one of his first times. He wasn't the greatest. And when he came off, I cracked a joke also at his expense. And I didn't feel good about it. As soon as the crowd was laughing, but I could see it in his eyes. He didn't like it. I didn't like it. It felt bad on the inside. Like, I didn't know it at the time, and he didn't know it at the time. But his girlfriend wanted to fuck. Anyway, so now I'm going to get down a little more. I've been reflecting on life, and I've been doing some writing and trying to not write jokes all the time. So I've been trying to write something serious. If you're here the first week, you heard me bitching about my grandfather. I'm going to do that a bit more right now. Yeah, so this is out of context, except for you heard it, and I think you heard it, and I think that's it. Well, I guess you two, or you three, heard it. Anyway, Grandma died. Grandpa is mad. Suddenly the person you want to confess all of your emotions to, all of your weaknesses, within this person, all of your faults accepted, all of your fears subdued, and all of the voices of doubt silenced, has, sorry, this is my first time reading it out loud. Grandma died. Grandpa is mad. Suddenly the person you want to confess all of your emotions to, all of your weaknesses. Within this person, all of your faults accepted, all of your fears subdued, and all of the voices of doubt silenced, as they themselves have been forever silenced. All the dreams and heartbeats you felt over a lifetime, all for an ear that was always ready to hear them, from a voice able to say them that never said them. And now that voice can say it 1,000,000 times. From rooftops with a megaphone or on stacks of paper written in cursive, that voice would now never be able to express those words to the one set of ears that were neglected while they could listen. The cost of time wasted is regret. I can't comprehend it. I'm approaching 38, and I'm lucky to admit to maybe a year or two of puppy love. Not 75 years of companionship. 75 years. If I fell in love tonight and kept it, I wouldn't be experiencing their achievement until I was just shy of turning 113. Never have I known the unconditional commitment of love found, not supplied by a parent or sibling. Love bestowed out of the luck of when and where, time and place. My brother and sister love me because of a mutually experienced coming to consciousness, not because we found each other. Never have I felt love that has drowned and flailed in angrily jealous waters, only to be again standing straight and firm to its post as the waters around it recede. Standing there by choice, out of commitment, out of loving dedication to someone other than themselves. Is this better? We now live in a world of endless options, but work required to succeed, a lifetime of loving commitment heavily outweighs the simplicity of just starting elsewhere. Sure, it sucks hurting someone you love, but don't you love yourself more? Of course, the first few months will require the heartbreak of reminders as you relearn to be solo. But I can't compare to the decades of what-ifs and wonders of how else. In what other way would you be lucky enough to be one half of a whole? The suggestion of leaving to find what you already have. But different. Different is better, right? Grandpa had a sailboat, and he loved this sailboat. I knew he loved this sailboat. You could see it so obviously. My 5-year-old self knew the importance of a simple invite to spend time with him there. Grandpa wouldn't be buying the latest gadgets and gizmos to decorate his prized floating palace, but every inch of that boat showed signs of care. Frequent washing, fresh paint, the proper preparation requires any and all repairs done properly from start to finish. There was no poor patchwork on this boat. An undisciplined approach to the upkeep of this vessel would assure you that it would not last the test of time. Take pride in your things. But Grandpa had like 7 boats. Bought and sold as his interest sent him elsewhere. He was no more attached to one than the other, and when the time finally came that Grandpa just simply couldn't do all the work required to maintain the standard of care, he just simply walked away. Decision made. No more boats. But every day went home to a life he very much seemed unhappy with. That's all I got written for that right now. I'll tell you a conspiracy, and then I'll get off the stage, all right? This is a conspiracy I thought up, all right? It is the winter of 1991. Rick Moranis is preparing to leave acting over the death of his wife, Anne Moranis. Just a few months later, Canadian rock icon Alanis Morissette steps out onto the stage, which begs the question, who is Alanis Moranis? Isn't it ironic?
Thank you, Corey. All right, I did think of one more joke that I could think of. I had this thought the other day. If you have ever been a teenage boy or a mother, you are probably familiar with the old stiff gym sock. We all know the stiff gym sock that we're talking about, which led me to think the other day. Okay, now that has the consistency. I compare the stiff gym sock to almost like a pizza box corrugated stiff cardboard. It's pretty solid, you know? And if you ever had a bit of Kleenex when you were cleaning up stick to you after, that is like an industrial glue. Which led me to the conclusion that there's no way cavemen were not using this as the first adhesive. This was like the first duct tape. For centuries before duct tape, humans had one thing. In fact, I bet the first hand job was a woman who just needed some glue. She just needed some glue. Anyway, that's something I thought of. I thought it'd be funny. Our next comedian for the night is Evan. Let's give a warm round of applause to Evan.
Hello, everybody. Woo. So yeah, weird things have been happening to me this week. And I'll just go out and list out a couple of things, and you tell me whether or not they're weird. Yeah. Yeah. So I parked my car over there, and I was walking. It was a couple of minutes away. I walked, and all of a sudden, a man approaches me. He was making weird noises, and he started throwing gang signs at me. I got panicked, and I knocked him the fuck out. Because I don't know, it's late at night, you know, but I made a mistake. I realized that when he fell down and his hearing aids came off. Turns out he was just fucking dead. Yeah. They should have a sign saying I'm deaf, especially at night, like neon or whatever. And I had to work on them. The other one was, I'm a pretty avid swimmer. I like swimming a lot. Eventually, I got into like diving, you know. So since I was a little kid, I've been diving for quite a lot of time, and I know quite a lot about it. So whenever I see someone who wants to like practice diving, I go out and give my 2 cents. When I look, I'm like, okay, this is a new person. Let me help him out. And the other week, I was helping someone. You know, I saw someone struggle, and I helped the person. But now that I think about it, a bridge is a weird place to practice diving. I don't know why I was crying in the first place, but I don't know. Alright, maybe I need to work on that also. Yeah, and the third thing was, I had a chlamydia scare. I had a chlamydia scare last week, and I'm like, the entire week I was so tense. I was so tense that eventually I got some time, and I was like, you know what, let me go to the doctors. And that's when I actually found out that the chlamydia that humans have is a different species than the chlamydia that koalas have, so it cannot be contracted. I'm safe. Who wants to come to the zoo with me? Huh? Anyone? I guess that one works. I'll keep that one. Yeah. So, I think women have this is a touchy subject, so let me, women have a thing where they say, you know, men are the problem, you know, and they're not wrong. Men are the problem, but they have to be a little more specific, which is why they're not fully right. They're like 80% right, you know, which is probably the reason why they get paid 80% of what we get paid. You know, we move. The real problem are horny men. Horny men are the real problem. I truly believe that horny men are the problem. I truly believe that if someone would have just stepped up, unzipped the pants of Hitler, and just jerked him off, the world would have 6 million more bankers and accountants for any of this. I truly believe it. Yeah. I'll give you another example, yeah? This is a long reach, but I'll give you my explanation for this. People in Africa have a starvation problem because of horny men. This is a long reach. Let me follow through. If you Google, you'll be able to find out that the starvation problem in Africa can be solved using $5 billion for good. $5 billion in starvation in Africa is wiped out. OnlyFans had $2.5 billion in revenue last year. OnlyFans made $2.5 billion last year only. So in other words, it takes 2 years for horny men to form an alliance. Form an alliance and just wipe out a global problem that has existed for decades. But they're like, you know what? I know that their lives are hard, but so is my dick, man. I don't know. This is a tough choice. I'm a wizard couple.
Me too.
That's my circles like. Yeah. I used to have a bunny. I say that I used to have because a funny and a sad story. What happened was, if you guys did not know, bunnies have a thing where whenever they feel safe and secure around you, they flop to the ground and do absolutely nothing. Which to the person who is not aware enough feels like a medical emergency. It looks like the bunny's dead. I thought my bunny was dead. So you can only imagine the surprise when the bunny woke up and found me inside of him. I mean, he just started flopping around here and there, so I just had to just break his neck. I accidentally killed him. But yeah, he's a nice flashlight for now. I guess that's it.
Thank you, Evan. That was a wonderful set. Great jokes. That was hilarious. You ever hear the term? I'm also very sorry to hear about your rabbit. You know the term multiplying like rabbits. I always wondered who the fuck is teaching these rabbits math. Anyway, moving on. Our next comedian is Tone. Am I saying that correct? Tone? Yeah, teach me. Help me. Talu. Oh, it's the spelling. The U looks like an N. It's not the pronunciation. Talu, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, he's doing up his phone. We'll pause for 2 minutes. Hype it up.
What's going on, guys? How you guys doing?
Amazing.
My name is Tulu Moore. Come on, I need some more energy. Let's go. So I was thinking recently about my childhood, right? And who I wanted to become when I was younger. And we all have these superheroes, right? People want to be Iron Man. Who do you guys want to be? Who do you want to be when you're a kid? Spider-Man? Cool. Yeah? I want to be Jackie Chan, man. No, seriously, I call myself Blackie Chan. It was kung fu, uppercuts, and all that on the daily. I asked her recently, can I join karate? And she's like, how much does it cost? I was like, it's $100 to join. She's like, I'll do you a favor. I'll give you some free experience, like beating your ass for free. Moms, man. Where else can I take this? Anywhere? I was going to hold back on some jokes, but I guess I'll just go forward with them too, right? So growing up, I grew up in foster care, so I was around a lot of white brothers, and my brothers, right? And first time I ever smoked a bong was with them. And that was like the weirdest experience because I was like, this contraption of a bong, like how do you, because what I did with the bong was I breathed into the bong when I didn't know you're supposed to, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, what the fuck? You just like literally water was spilling out like a wet pussy, like all over the carpet and shit. This guy turned around, he's like, yo, you gotta get out here, bro. I was like, fuck, man. This kid was like Eminem, I was high as shit. Took his mom's spaghetti and left, man. I'm gone. Oh, man. This thing's throwing me off. This pink little thing here.
Different behind you.
Oh, you got different ones? Let's see what else I have. I thought there'd be an audience here, so I didn't know this is like draft day. I don't want to waste your time right now. I'll probably come back after. I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Tallulah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. All right, and we are now circling back around, giving up one more time for the comedy stylings of Tay. Tay's not going to be able to Okay, we're moving on. Mike, have you got another story for us? All right, Mike.
Interesting environment. I've been doing storytelling in Toronto for 7 or 8 years now, and every so often someone says, the story's true. And there's some events I've done where the story has to be true, and I always say, yeah, it is. But I'll scramble names and dates and locations because it's possible someone I'm talking about and I have not gotten permission from will find out about it. And what that means is that if you hear something and you think you recognize somebody, you're probably wrong. But if you recognize yourself, then I'm going to stand up, I'm going to stand behind anything I said. I got to say that for this one because did I mention I'm old earlier? Like I'm working on being old. At one point I was a university student. I was a screenwriter and I was a film student in theater and I also did a lot of poetry. Do not panic, I'm not going to read any here. I do have to quote 31 words at one point. I'm not going to read any because I don't think I wrote it particularly well. I had a ruthless prof for British and American poetry, and this guy was vicious. He would often say stuff like, that's wordplay, it's not poetry, that's wordplay. Someone playing with themselves on the page. But I got something else here, and he'd bring up another poem, and he'd say, now that's poetry, that is. There's some depth in that, there's some pain in that. There's somebody who's putting something that he cannot explain in other terms. That's poetry, that is. I'd be terrified to write anything for this guy. And there was a girl in the class, because there was always going to be a girl, and her name was Angela. And Angela was taller than me and a year in advance of me and was gorgeous and was sarcastic and caustic. And for some reason I had a weakness for her. For some reason she kind of, sort of, slightly liked me. And I'm not sure why. We were not dating. We were by no means dating whatsoever. We would, however, go to clubs sometimes and she would pull me in quiet corners because she liked to kiss me for half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour and a half. But there wasn't much more than that. We were not dating by her dictate. She told me, you want me as a friend much more than a girlfriend. You should know that. Okay, fair enough. And the reason we actually kind of hooked up, in that minor sense, was that at the end of the year, there was a party. It was kind of the classic wine and cheese, and it was boring as hell. And I had drunk too much. And I was looking at her thinking, I'm not going to see you again. You're going to graduate. So as I was leaving, she was talking to somebody, and I went behind her, put my hand on her shoulder, kissed her cheek. And I was going to say something witty and sarcastic, but for some stupid reason, I just said, good night, sweet prince. I really want to blame the booze on that, I really do. But she turned around and she had a very weird look on her face and she said, hey, yeah, I don't want to lose you. Okay. And gave me her number, and therefore we went into that we're not dating. At the time I was working for the Toronto Police Department. I was doing clerical work. It was incredibly boring, but I actually made money. So it was a nice change of pace. I had money for once, and I was sort of kind of seeing not dating this tall, slightly older woman, and it was great. I was smug. I thought, I'm getting away with something. I mean, if she told me one evening, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore, I would have thought, hey, I had a good run. And I met her one evening, and I was in that smug kind of state of mind. She came into a pub, it's called the Poet's Rest. It doesn't exist anymore in Toronto. I met her there, she was sitting there with a large glass of whiskey. I came in and said, okay, I got paid. They're actually paying me for a change. I'm in a great mood. What do you want to do tonight? Anything. It's on me. And she looked at me and she said, I got raped last night at the store after hours. Okay. So that changes the caliber of the evening. Now, she looked blank. I don't want to know what to say to her. I'm not going to say, are you okay? Because it's obvious that she's not okay. And I'm not going to say, is there anything I can do? Because I don't think there is absolutely anything. But I did say, can you talk about this? And she raised her hand to her eyes like she was going to cry. And I reached out to hold her hand. And she slapped my hand and leaned back, knocked back the whiskey, and said, you should have seen the look on your face just then. Okay. I knew two women who had been hospitalized. One had been beaten and raped, and the other had been assaulted. So I don't really find this funny. And I've got a couple of seconds to realize, do I want to be with someone this evening who's going to pull that kind of thing? Or do I make it very clear this is out of bounds? So I made a call that I kind of regret. I looked at her for a second, and I dropped some money on the table and said, you know what, Angela, this is great, this is wonderful, but I'm not up to this kind of humor this evening. So call a cab, go home, have a great night, bye. And I walked. Principled stand, right? I got around 3 blocks away, and I stopped because I realized she never said that the rape didn't happen. She just made a joke out of it. So I'm in a position where I have either taken that great, brave, principled stand and left someone who made fun of sexual assault, or I have just walked away from a rape victim who doesn't know how to talk about it. Got any ideas? Now, as I'm trying to figure this out, she has left the pub and she's walking towards me, not particularly quickly. I went to meet her, and the only thing she said about it was, you are far too sensitive, which is not a denial. And this kind of friendship, kind of dating, kind of whatever it was, became a very different thing. And I worked for the police. A couple of days later, I got every piece of literature I could that had to do with sexual assault and rape and counseling, put it in a manila envelope, went to her apartment, gave it to her roommate, and said, give this to Angela, don't open it. And I only saw her a few times after that because she wanted to talk, but she didn't want to talk about anything real. We'd go out and we'd see a movie, and she'd complain about the cinematography and about the writing, and I'd say, how are you doing these days? And she'd say, I am absolutely wonderful because I'm here, Michael, because I'm here, which became a weird motif. And we stopped going to clubs, and she stopped pulling me into corners and kissing me for a long time, except for one evening. And it was just when I was thinking, I don't know what to do with this woman. I want to help her. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And we'd gone to that pub again and had a few too many drinks. And we started kissing on the way out. And we continued to be kissing in the cab. And I got to her place. And at one point, we were going upstairs. And it's very clear, I'm going to go home now, or I'm spending the evening with her. And she came in and she put her arms around me. And she said, I hate you, Michael. And she was crying. But she wasn't sobbing. There were tears coming down her face. And she was that weird kind of blank. I said, yeah, I know. And she sat down on a couch, and I sat on the floor. I held her hand, and she stared into the walls, and then she closed her eyes and fell asleep. So she slept for 6 hours, and I sat on the floor holding her hand. And around 6 in the morning, she woke up and said, You can call a cab. Went to the bathroom, closed the door. So here's where I gave up on Angela. And I still don't know whether I should have given up on Angela. I'd given her a book. If you want to be fussy, it was a copy of W.H. Auden, a really thick one she used in poetry. And she called me from the Big Bop. It's an old club in Toronto, bar of pickups. And she said, I'm out here, and I'm with Cassie, and I'm with Carla, and we're having a great time, and I've got your book, and you should come, you should join me. And I'm just thinking, it's the Big Bop. It's the kind of place where they have $2 shooters. I do not want to deal with that energy. I said, keep the book. But I did get it back. She dropped it off at my front door, and there was this note in it that was a crazy quilt. It was on a paper bag written in 6 or 7 different angles. It didn't say what happened or what didn't happen. It just said that she appreciated what I was trying to do. She talked to some people. And if I'd been trying to sell myself to her, quote unquote, I did a great job. And I haven't spoken to her since. And I don't know what I should have done. She doesn't exist on social media. And even the people that we used to know together doesn't know her. I gave in a couple of years ago. I got in touch with someone who used to live with her, and I said, this is none of my business, because she never mentioned me. It doesn't matter if 30 years later. It would help me with something I'm writing. And she said, no, really, were you dating? Yeah, something like that. And I just want to bring this up because 5 or 6 years after university, I had a lousy job working retail. And it's around 6 in the morning, I'm living in a house that's cold. I don't want to spend 8 hours folding t-shirts. And I'm very aware of the fact that in addition to complaining about my life and my job and the weather, I'm wondering, how's Angela doing? And I wrote the last piece of poetry I ever wrote. So I got to quote those 31 words. Trust me, they're short. I could never finish it. This is all I could write. If I'd known the wounds you had hidden, I would still want to heal you. I would still repeat your name behind my eyes in the early hours of morning. Lost poetry, that is. Thanks for your time. Good night.
Thank you, Mike. Indeed, that was poetry. We have one more name before we've made it all the way around. Jake. Jake, are you coming up to tell some jokes? Oh, dear Jake. Oh, hello, Jake. I'm sorry. I missed that your name was Jake. One more time for Jake.
I'm going to change, I'm going to go with purple. How's that? I guess as we've gone around one more time, maybe have another break after this. You guys are into it? And then after that, it's basically open season. You can try different things. So where were we? Last time my daughter was here, we were talking about dialysis, I think it was. And, what makes me think about that is that, as I said last time, I think a lot about the self, about myself and the self. And Dionysus, as Nietzsche said, was about the body, and Apollo was about the mind. And over the years, I realized that we're kind of a collection of beings within us, and some of them are kind of natural and habitual, and some of them are just, with forethought and abstract reasoning. And we put them all together to be ourselves. And I can say this about myself and probably about everybody here, is that I have living inside me some kind of a weird autistic genius. It's like I think all of us have essentially what is our body systems. They're kind of genius. Like, it does things that are quite stunning. It has ways to demonstrate intelligence and reaction and understanding and forethought without it doing any of that, just through movement. And, growing up, I identified with the other side, the Apollonian side. Everything was about, logic and reasoning, and I was still a cool kid, but some of my friends called me Spock. It was just that kind of, just wanted to know everything about everything. And over the years, and with maybe with the help of psychedelics, I don't know, it had something to do with it, I realized that some of the most important things activities that I engage in, really involve my body more than my mind. And it's like this superpower that's within us that many of us ignore. Some of us don't give it the respect and, prominence that it deserves because, depending on what I'm doing, I mean, the part that's talking to you right now, it's usually, I've kind of given myself two names. It's Jake, Jenk. Like the part that talks is Jake. That's kind of the abstract side. We associate that with the conscious, with the left brain, those kind of metaphors. And the part of me that is of the body, I call Jenk. And that was my original name. Like I was born, that was the name I was given. It's kind of like a derivative of Genghis, like Genghis Khan. And that, somewhere around the age of 2, 3, 4, depending on who you are, you kind of get this different understanding of the self. Well, first of all, there is the understanding of the self. You start to realize that, hey, like I'm here, what's going on? Like it's me, I have this thing, and there's other people outside of me. And before you put that into words, it must be like, I don't know, maybe it's like the Greek chorus. It's like everyone's kind of, you get this impression of people telling you something without words, but you get the feeling. And you can communicate at that level. You can communicate without words. And so the part that talks is Jake, usually. What is Jake responsible for? Well, it's always some kind of ratio, right? I don't know if you've introspected into your own psyche, you may find that there are multiple things going on. And, if I'm doing some kind of business discussion, it's usually Jake, it's the left brain. If I'm engaged in some kind of art, it's usually Jake. I do some improvisational electronic music, and it's way more Jake than Jake because there's no plan, there's no thought. It's improvised completely, and it feels great. It's like the mind gets out of the way. And isn't it interesting how a lot of the things that we really respect in performance of people, we say, like whether it's sports or music or chess, they say something like, oh, he was unconscious when he did that. Like, oh, it was just so, which brings me to the word genius, right? We say, like, much like the word tragedy, we use it in a colloquial sense that it's a really bad thing, but there's a lot more history to that word. The word genius even is another one of those fun words. We kind of use it now to give credit to somebody for some wonderful things. We say, oh, that was genius. But in a more original sense, in a more etymon, more truth of it, it's like, it kind of takes away agency. It's like, genius is that spirit that's within you that's acting through you. So in a strange sort of way, you're taking credit away from that person when you say you're a genius. It's like, oh, you're a vessel for these energies and spirits in the world and the universe and in history to come through you. Oh, that person's a genius. Again, it's kind of taken on a different meaning again now. We say, for any kind of great achievement, we say, oh, that was genius. But I mean, we know what we're talking about. And words change, right? Like, terrific. When you look at the word, it's like terror and terrifying. And it's kind of interesting with the word terroir and terra. It's like the earth is in there. It's like what's terrifying is the earth, in a sense. It's like, it's kind of misunderstood or not understood. It's not a rational thing. It's something we just react to with our bodies. And somehow we seem to know what to do. So I find that there's some kind of a genius living inside all of us that, if you can think about it from their perspective, in some cases they're just in there as a passenger. It is not really allowed to take charge, because that's what it was like when I was a kid. It's like, I would not really respect my emotions, which are of the body. I would push them away, where I would think they needed to be overcome, or they were false signals. It's like, if I'm upset, that means I wasn't able to deal with it rationally. That's why I'm upset. So this was terrible if you were my girlfriend at the time, because it didn't make sense to me. Like, why would you cry? It's like clearly you can't deal with something irrationally. That's why you're crying. But you don't think about all the other layers that are there, that are empathy and human feeling and all these unconscious signals that go back and forth. And over time, I realized that a lot of the things that I really love to do is really up the body. But of course, you can't go too far one way or the other. It's not like 50-50 is the perfect mix. It might be, and maybe right now 50-50 is a great mix because it's like I'm talking, but I'm also getting a sense and a feeling, and it feels good, so it gives me some ideas and improvisation. So it's kind of a mix. But sometimes it's 80-20, sometimes it's 20-80. I guess a part of my personal development is trying to find that right ratio, but it's kind of ironic because you don't want to do that consciously and think about it and make a decision. You kind of want to learn to just feel that. It's like, who's in charge? I still don't know. It feels like sometimes the body's in charge, the mind is just kind of along for the ride and is kind of rationalizing and thinking, oh, yeah, I did that because I wanted to do X, but really your body already did it and you're just rationalizing. That happens quite a bit. But we have this weird gift that it seems like we can override what is just habitual patterns. And that gives us hope that anything can change about yourself, for example. It's possible. It can change. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, we're taking a bit of a break, 15 minutes, and then we'll do another round. We'll follow the list in that order. You guys can stay? Stay? Yeah, you can stay? Yes. All right. You guys are staying. Excellent. 15 minutes, guys.
Does anybody have a lighter I can borrow for like 2 minutes?
I got one.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. We'll be right back.